What's up, everybody? This is Isaiah, and this is the very first episode of the Classic Chronicles. Now, before I get into what I want to talk about, I'm gonna just tell you a little bit how this blog came about. So, this blog has basically been almost a decade in the making. It all started back when I was in college taking an improv course at John Jay. My professor and mentor at the time, Professor Duffy, suggested that I write down my life story because she thought it was a unique one and thought the world should hear it. Me personally, I don't really see that, but hopefully I don't know. I'm not gonna say no to other people. So, on the strength of her, I wrote it down to I started writing it to I started writing it, and then as I continued to write it, I I was like, okay, now I'm really far in. So the me writing down just like basic stories of my life caused me to want to organize it and turn it into my upcoming autobiography titled "Man Behind the Wheel," and it's coming soon. And this vlog is just kind of like to coincide with it, and whet your appetite for what you're gonna hear in the book. I'm gonna tell you a few things, but I'm not gonna really tell you everything. Everything else is just gonna have to wait. But for right now, let's talk about growing up. Me growing up. I grew up in Ridgewood, Queens, New York, which is a really small, quaint town. It's on the borderline of Queens and Brooklyn in New York. So on one side you have Brooklyn, and on the other side you have Queens. So I'm kind of like right in the middle. Uh, it's really weird. Like people, every time that I mention Ridgewood, people are like, "Where the hell is that?" And it's funny. But so I grew up the youngest of four biological siblings, and a whole man. There is my brother Gus, which is really cool. Always has my back. My brother Carl, which is the eldest of us. Man, he was really cool. Used to be a huge wrestling fan growing up, just like I was. So that's how we bonded. My sister Chris, she's great. Great mother. And then my sister Erica. That we were always the closest growing up because we were fraternal twins. I think we're 3 months apart and some change. So we were really close growing up. And growing up for me was pretty normal, despite the fact that I had cerebral palsy. So cerebral palsy is it can affect either your upper or your lower body. In my case, it affects my lower body. Uh, so I can't do a whole lot of things with my lower body, but I definitely make up with the strength of my upper body. I mean, I can dress myself and get things done, but it takes me a whole lot longer than most people. But I'm okay with that. As long as the job gets done, that's all I care about. Um, and so I wasn't treated any differently than somebody who didn't have cerebral palsy. I was treated, very fairly by my friends and classmates. Some of which that I still keep in touch to this day. Shout out to Jason. Shout out to Sal. Shout out to Aquasia, aka Quay. And a lot of other classmates that I still keep in touch with. So and I also grew up with a school wasn't difficult in the sense of making friends, but it was difficult because I grew up with a learning disability. So a learning disability doesn't mean you're dumb. Let me just get that out of the park. Get that out of the way right now. You're not dumb if you have a learning disability. Learning disability just means it takes your brain longer to process information than it normally would with someone with a high functioning brain. I guess you can call it. I don't want to. I don't know. I don't know what the correct term is for that, but you know, that never impeded me from learning. I'm always curious to learn. I I love to learn. I never stop learning. I'm always, filling my brain with everything. Anything that gives you knowledge, the any piece of knowledge that you gain is valuable knowledge to me. So that's how I feel. Um, so up until the fourth grade, I was in special ed, and nothing wrong with being in special education. The the work isn't any easier because, like I said, your brain still takes a little while longer to function and process the information that you're being given. So it doesn't get it's not any easier. So so after I mean in the fourth grade, I was put into what's called inclusion classes. So that's basically regular education students. The work is normal and you're learning at a normal pace. So I had a paraprofessional, but yeah, even with the help of a paraprofessional that would try to explain the work to me, it was still difficult for me to pick up on that. So much so that at one of my IEP meetings, one of my teachers said that I would never make it past high school, and and I would need help for the rest of my life. Now, for those of you who don't know what an IEP meeting is, it's basically a meeting uh, where your parents and the teacher sit down and you basically outline the goals that you want your child to meet for that year. And like I said, they told one of those teachers told my mother that I would never make it to high school and I would need help for the rest of my life, which is absolutely crazy to me. And from that moment on, I told myself that I would prove them wrong, and I did, and I will get into that later. So, uh, but uh, but yeah, I grew up in the '90s, so that was the decade of you know after school cartoons and Saturday morning cartoons. Some of my favorites were Power Rangers and Batman the animated series and X-Men the animated series and Doug and Rugrats. I can go on, and thank God for streaming services today that have those shows that allow us that grew up in that era to relive the nostalgia, man. That was that era. Um, so, and as far as video games go, I'm a huge video game fan. But back then, I had Super Nintendo, I had Sega Genesis, I had Sega Dreamcast. I had basically every video game system that you could think of. The only system that I probably didn't own was a Sega Saturn, which I wish I would have owned. But anyway, no. My favorite games, I love Mortal Kombat, I love Street Fighter, I'm a sports gamer. Man, everything just video games. And I love wrestling also. I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I got the chance to kind of be on the other side of the guardrail, as they say, and get in the ring and wrestle myself. We'll get into that journey later on too, because that's certainly an interesting journey. Um, and so, okay, funny family story about me growing up. Uh, I used to, and this is kind of embarrassing for me to tell. I used to be afraid of the end credits of movies. Like I had a really weird phobia of the end credits of movies because I figured that something or somebody was gonna pop up and go through the screen and get me. I don't know where that phobia came from, but I can tell you that was one of my phobias. And according to my mom, I used to rock back and forth in my high chair to simulate flying. I guess I don't know. It was really weird. But man, like I said, growing up for me, it was normal. I didn't have I wasn't bullied in elementary school or made fun of because of, despite having cerebral palsy. You know, I met a lot of lifelong friends that I still keep in touch with today, and you know, my teachers treated me as if I was a normal student, despite having this different ability. And notice how I didn't say disability, because disability signifies helplessness to me, and I'm far from that. I'm very strong, I'm very independent, and to anybody out there who's watching this, don't let nobody tell you that you can't do nothing despite your circumstances. Define your circumstances. Do not let your circumstances define you. Um, so, alright, I guess we're gonna wrap it up, man, for this vlog. But, you know, catch you on the next episode, and we're gonna talk more about my early life. Uh, alright, so I guess that wraps it up. Peace. Stay safe, stay blessed, and uh, put God first, and everything else will fall into place. Later.